What's up guys, and welcome back to the Handy Hunter. On today's video I'm going to walk you guys through building these mobile deer sleds. They're really cheap, really quick to build, and very easy to build, and I'm going to walk you through it. But before we do that, let's go take a little ride. Alright guys, so it wasn't too long ago, Preston and I were leaving the farm and we needed to fill up a feeder on Quail Ridge before we left. So we went up there, we backed the truck up to it, loaded about 3 or 4 bags of corn in this feeder, and then all of a sudden one of the legs gave out on it and it just went crashing to the ground. Corn went everywhere. The barrel landed on the spinner box and just crushed it and ruined it. So I was able to salvage the motor and stuff out of it, but other than that, it was a pivotal moment for me because I'm like, I am done with tripods. I'm done with 3-legged feeders. I don't even know who came up with that stupid concept. You can't move them. They're hard to fill up. And I did the same thing. I just followed the hunting world and put out tripod feeders, but no more. So I have new feeders concepts now. I've been running these, and these things track really well behind vehicles. They're easy to pull. Just know that they may need some modifications for your use. I built these for my use. I built them a little narrow because I might need to get them in hog corrals in the future, and I didn't want to have to build a really wide gate for the hog corrals. So I move my feeders around real easy. I don't need something to go crazy with, and these things I can pull all around my farm and not have to worry about anything. One of the things the reason I came up with this concept, it's a simplified build for you guys. It was simplified for myself. Is the first feeder I built. I did a video on it. It's on our channel from several years ago. And that sled is awesome. A lot of people built that sled, but I did hear from a lot of subscribers on that sled that it's difficult to build because of the angled legs on it. And I didn't want to build that sled again. I know you guys didn't want to build that sled again probably, but it's a great sled. It'll last a lifetime. Just a little difficult to build. And so I wanted to come up with a concept that was easy for everybody to build. This concept has no angled cuts. It's just really 90-degree cuts and welded on. The only difficult part about this is some notch cutting, and we'll talk about that when we get into the details. So anyway, that's it guys. I'm going to walk you through some of the details on how to build one of these. Just so you know, I also tried to minimize the materials involved in building this without sacrificing any strength to hold up the corn. And with all the materials involved in this build, it'll probably cost you a little over $100, and that includes the hitch, the jack, and all the piping and the metal involved. Now that does not include anything to do with the deer barrel, spinner, solar panel lid, and all that. This is just for the sled. So a little over $100, you can have a mobile sled that'll probably last you an entire lifetime. So anyway guys, let's talk about some of the details. This deer feeder over here on the right is one I just converted from a tripod, and this one I built at home and just brought it up here to the farm. This piping on here is 2-inch EMT piping from Lowe's or Home Depot, and that's a 10-foot stick that I cut 5.5 feet for the tongue and 4.5 feet for what I call the axle. All right, so you can adjust the length of that if you want and the width of that, but that's one stick of EMT that costs you about $22. At least at my Lowe's, it was $22. And then the tower poles, these are cut at 40 inches because there's 3 of them, and 10-foot stick is 120 inches. So I cut 40 inches on each one, and that's 120 inches. So I got 3 poles out of a 10-foot stick. So that's 2 10-foot sticks. That'll cost you about $44 or so to make this whole sled, pretty much the T-bar and the tower. Now, the 90-degree elbows right here are just your 2-inch EMT elbows that you can get at Lowe's for 10 bucks a piece. So you'll have 20 bucks in the elbows and about 44 bucks in the T-frame. These jacks you can get, I got this at Northern Tool. These are kind of expensive at Northern Tool. They're about 40 bucks. And I've got this in our Amazon store for like $25, I think. And it just has a little different connection. Instead of a flat bar here, it has a little round thing that you would weld to this, and it rotates on that. So I would have bought the one off of Amazon. I didn't have time to wait because of all this coronavirus delay stuff, and I needed to run to Northern Tool and get that and get it welded so I could get it to the farm. This is a 2.5 inch hitch width here. It's important to know that a 2-inch EMT is not 2 inches. It's 2.25 inches wide. So this is a 2.5 inch with a 1 7/8 ball on it. So in our Amazon store as well, we have the right ones in there. It's a 2.5 inch, but you may have to put a little filler between the wall of this and the wall of the hitch to fill in the gap, and then you weld it underneath. So let's talk a little bit about the sequence and how you build this. What do you do first? So what I did is I took the axle bar, I laid it on the flat ground, and I took my elbows after I notch cut them, and we'll talk about that in a second. You take that and you flip your elbows upside down and you put them on your axle so that one end is touching the pipe and the other end is touching the concrete, right, or the floor, so that both sides are exactly the same when you tack weld them. And then once you're done tack welding them, you stand the axle up until your elbows, the flat part of the bottom, is as flat as possible on the pavement, you know, or the concrete. And then I put like a floor jack underneath here to hold it up while I tack welded the tongue to that at the level height that I wanted my, tongue to ride. But you want to try to get your elbows, the flat part of your elbows, to ride flat on the ground as much as possible, so they're not riding on the tips on the back or in the bend on the front. So it just drags a little easier if it's flat. The tray up here is, everybody always emails me and asks me what's the size of the tray that goes in on a barrel. A barrel is 23 inches wide. I always make my trays 24 inches wide. Now you can make them 23, in 3/4 to 24 inches, and you'll be fine. You can kind of see there's a little bit of gap down in there and a little bit of gap back here on the back side down in there. And just a little tip for you on drilling these holes and welding these nuts on here. If you use hardened bolts that you get at like Tractor Supply instead of just the regular zinc, shiny zinc ones, the hardened bolts will weld better than the zinc ones. But your measurement from the bottom up to your pilot hole to get this right is about 11/16. That's what I use. From the bottom up here, I use 11/16. I drill a pilot hole, and then I use a 1/2 inch drill bit to drill my hole for this bolt. And this is, and what happens is that puts your bolt, when it goes through, right on top of your rib right there, and it keeps it nice and snug against it. So this is 11/16. From the bottom will get you right on if you're using a 1/2 inch bolt like I use, and I suggest that because you want strength there. So the nice thing about this, if you notice, I built this feeder with round 2-inch piping. That feeder over there I built with angle iron. You can do either one, and either one works out just as fine. I think this one is actually a little bit more sturdy, and it welds flat all the way around. It sits flat on that bar, which is really nice, and makes for a really nice weld all the way around. So it's really sturdy when you weld it. So I built a step. I love it because now I can just step up on here and then take another second step on this. This needs to be away from your feeder. It's hard to stand straight up and down and put corn in there, so that's why I put this further out. This is a 13-inch step from here to here, 13 inches, and it's I think it's 14 inches from the bottom up to here. When you're notch cutting, we'll look at this one right here. So if you'll notice, this is a grooved out cut. Call it notch cutting, and you got to have the right bit to do this with. That's a 2 1/8 bit is what you want if you're going to notch cut 2-inch EMT, and it will cut perfectly. You need a drill press or a notch cut jig to be able to do it, and it's, you can do it. If not, you got to do it old school. You just get your grinder out, your hand grinder, and grind out those notches and let it sit over that pipe. We're all set to go now. So easy to move these things, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they're easy to build once you get the materials and you've got the equipment to do it with. You're pretty much ready to roll. All I did here was pretty much installed these cages on here because I didn't have a cage on my tripod, so I bought this wild game feeder. I think it was, I don't know, 20 bucks. And I've got these in our Amazon store too. I think it was 20 bucks, and it was pretty easy to install. No big deal. I just wish that they made this to where it can fold down without having to take all 4 of these things off, but it won't because it hits the bottom of the feeder. But anyway, no big deal. It's just one of those slight small improvements that would have been easier. So that's it, guys. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Not too hard, just a little shop time and you'll have your couple built. But anyway, if I can answer any questions for you guys, just leave me some comments, shoot me an email, steve@digitalsouth.com. Glad to help you guys out. And if you have any questions, but take this, modify it, make it fit your needs, and roll with it. These things are nice, man. They track good behind vehicles, and it's just amazing how easy it is to build these things. So anyway, guys, catch you later. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you at the next video. All right, guys, this is why 3-legged deer feeders should be illegal. They should be outlawed. Because we gotta throw this thing on a trailer. I got my poor father-in-law back there. He's just barely hanging on. I got Preston's got the dog. Look at that poor guy back there. Everybody good back there? Still alive? All right. Ain't happy about this, but we'll make it.